All right, everybody, welcome back to Brown and Browner, the post-Memorial Day edition. There's lots of stuff going on in sports, society, and everything in between. We're here to cover as much as we can.
Got that right. And there's a lot to cover. It's an exciting time of year when you look at the playoffs. You look at the upcoming schedules for tennis and the majors, both in tennis and in golf. We just had one this past weekend, and Scottie Scheffler obviously dominated the field. And I shouldn't say obviously, but I think his specter, his ability his presence, his ability to intimidate people just by his presence on the leaderboard is like Tiger was, is like Jack Nicklaus was back in the day, and more so than the Jordan Spieth and the people who touched number one for a minute. It's dominating, and I have to say it's impressive because even the best golfers are finding themselves choking and giving it to Scheffler because they're so intimidated and have this feeling that they have to do more than what they're maybe capable of in the moment to be able to compete with him.
Well, and I'll say two things. So one, I'll jokingly say that he's the greatest comeback history in sports because he went to jail.
Which, I'm sorry. If he was black, I would have been like, yeah, no problem. But you don't usually see that. And he actually shot well when he came back that day, that morning. He shot well enough to still put himself in contention to win that tournament. And most people can't say they go to jail and come out and would be able to perform on that type of stage. So kudos to him.
No, this dude's got pure skill, and you got to give him credit. I think there was something that came out after the PGA tournament this weekend where I guess, and this is a controversial thing on the PGA Tour, they do random testing for clubs, all across the board. So they randomly picked 50 people and just happened to be this weekend during the PGA that they did it. So Rory, and a few others, they all, notably had drivers that weren't meeting conforming standards, whatever it is. Now, the greatest, I think the one thing I do support from all the players who got not necessarily hit with the same thing, but or whatever it was, they need to test everybody. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's a level playing field. You don't just randomly say, okay, we're going to do 50 here and 50 there and 50, wherever. You do everybody. And we'll get into a little bit of a crossover story in tennis and that too.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, I understand the physics of golf. I mean, yes, there is some advantage to having proper clubs, obviously. And with those who have the skill set, you tailor your clubs, you tailor your swing. That's how it works, and that's how you optimally play.
Bryson DeChambeau, who does it within the legal limits of what the PGA has established.
Yes, sir. Him and his Popeye arms, they make it work with that driver and everything else he's got conforming, and he's got literally perfectly milled clubs out of 3D printing. Think about that. I mean, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, he's using today's technology. Plus, he's got longer shafts. Like, the way our clubs work, as you go higher or lower in the number, the club gets longer, right? And the face comes out. He actually changed all of that. And I give him credit because he used science to be able to come up with the best solution for his game to perform at that level.
Yep, I agree. And that's where I give credit to golfers that can take advantage of not necessarily the rules, but honestly, in every sport, you should be trying to tailor your game to what best conforms in terms of the equipment and everything else. That said, though, I mean, I do agree with all the players. There needs to be uniform testing throughout of all clubs, everything else. I mean, at the end of the day, and then of course there's the exceptions where honestly, John Daly, can you give him a baseball bat, he'll still play well.
Daly's living life. I was on the golf course Sunday, and strange story enough, I was on the golf course Sunday. I went out. I'd been wanting to play. Had a funeral this past weekend, so just wanted to get my mind in a better space. And I met a young guy. We had a 5:36 tee time a.m. Met a young black guy who happened to be a lefty. Now, talk about the odds of that.
First the unicorn status.
Yeah, first off, golf is not a sport for people who look like you and me. Maybe more who look like you, but definitely don't look like me. All right, they could be brown, but the browner they get, the less likely you see them on a golf course, unless they're caddying. And to see a lefty, that is shocking. And the guy was good. He used to hit. He hits the ball like I used to. Hit one drive, 370 yards. I had to tell him, like, you need to have some sex there because something's wrong there. You hit the ball way too far. That ain't Wheaties. That's needy some TVs. You know what I'm saying?
Anyway, he's the guy who broke it in. Yeah, he's the guy using the broken-in driver that has quote-unquote the spring action that somehow doesn't, meet the conforming standards of the PGA.
One thing I'll say about what you said, though, all professional athletes understand the rules of their sport. So I agree that we should have widespread testing. It shouldn't be singled out to a few because the others may be doing the wrong things, and now they're going to get their things right because they know they're getting the test soon.
Yep.
But if you know the rules, to then be in violation of those rules, speaks to you. And we talk about golf being that sport, that has the integrity and you penalize yourself and all of that. Well, it sounds like a little bit of college basketball, college football, a little bit like, hey, we're going to push the envelope a little bit. And if nobody sees it, it's okay.
Yep. Nope, that's exactly it. And that's the thing. I mean, when's the last time you heard about a guy, I don't know, doing PEDs in golf?
It shouldn't. Now they could get daily because he likes to smoke and drink, but I think if you can smoke and drink and play golf, you're a little bit better.
I call that more talent.
Yeah, exactly.
You can pull that shit off. You're doing well.
A quick side note. So we were talking about golf and talking about the rules and being caught. You mentioned tennis, and we all know about Sinner, and what an appropriate name. I'm a sinner, but I didn't sin. I was a mistake. I didn't know. I'm me. You know me. I wouldn't do that, and that is wrong too. Because just as you said about golf, the rules should apply to everyone. And there have been other people who've been busted for similar kind of things or violations, and yet they were suspended for a year. And Sinner got to play major tournaments and still win them.
Yep. Think about how purposeful this was.
Resolved.
What's that? He not only violated the rules once, but violated them twice, if I recall correctly, on the entire record. They conveniently give him a 3-month ban between the Australian Open and the French Open. You don't think there's politics in play there? Media, everything else in tennis is going. It's the most corrupt thing in the world. Now, when you interview every single player, they're all under the same guys. There should be uniform rules. There should be uniform rules. Djokovic, I mean, the man of the sport is saying that, this should be uniform across the sport. Federer has come out and said it. Alcaraz had a tongue-in-cheek comment because he defeated him this weekend. Thank you for defeating Sinner at the Italian Open on his home turf. But he had a tongue-in-cheek comment. It's like, I know you've gone through a lot in the last few months, that kind of thing. Very professional answer. But you could tell tongue-in-cheek, he's like, you asshole, you cheated.
Yeah,
you don't
cheated.
Yeah,
exactly. And probably ruined his chances to be the one to win all of those majors, because the ones that Sinner won, I think Alcaraz was pretty much playing against him in the finals or in the semis to get that title. So I think that's totally wrong. And there's no basis in my mind that would support the decisions that they made to isolate how they treated him versus all of the other people who have been in violation and were suspended for long periods of time and missed, and in some cases may have derailed their entire career. Because like any sport, the more you're doing it, the more you're in it, you get that. You you remove yourself from something from a year, it takes you a little bit to get back there.
I can't name the women's Russian players in particular off the top of my head, and I should be able to, unfortunately. But they were at the top of their game, top 10 players, got caught with doping, and they got banned for a year. And you're telling me it's not uniform? It doesn't need to be uniform across men, women, every other thing across the board, ranking regardless? I mean, it's unheard of. So honestly, even for anything that Sinner wins from now until eternity, and let's pretend he somehow wins 30 Grand Slams, whatever it is, I'm never going to give that guy credit because of that stain on his mark. You tarnished all the historical value that tennis has had. It's just ridiculous. You never heard about Agassi doping. You never heard about Sampras, Chang, Federer, Nadal, Djokovic,
Laver, any of those. None of those were caught doing that. And if they would have banned them. They would have given them the suspension like everybody else. So it is wrong that they do that. And I think this is something in my mind that speaks to where our culture is in sports, in America, and globally, is we've gone away from what's right and knowing what's right and supporting that holistically. What we do is we isolate things. And I'll give you examples just from America. There are people who support our current president and he could tell you lies to your face, and they're willing to support those lies, and they can use them to be able to punish others and have this really finite view for them. But then when it's applied to themselves, there's a broader view. Hey, you know what? Well, it's not exactly the same thing for me as it was for that person.
Right.
Something's wrong there when we start to isolate how we want to apply punishment, rules, guidelines. It's supposed to be one fit for all.
But I'll trickle this exactly where you're going. What does that teach kids?
Exactly.
That's your biggest problem. We create rules in society, and ever since the dawn of time, because we like to think to a greater standard across everyone. We look in the best interest of the general whole. It's not about the individual specific. And for the individual specific, there's no separate rule. It's the rule of all. And that's the whole problem here is now you're teaching kids, okay, well, this only applied to this guy or this only applied to this girl or whatever it is.
Right.
I'm sorry, but then what's the point? You may as
well
not
be a rule then, because you don't have rules for yourself, but you have rules for others.
Exactly.
And, you know, I have to say I taught my kids, and I think there's a different perspective. Not sure what your thoughts on this, but being Black and American, growing up with a lot of prejudice and people who would call you the N-word in your face. I remember once my mom told me when I was in 5th grade and when I grew up that these kids called me the N-word.
Yep.
I went home because I was 5. I didn't know what it was. And I asked my mom what it was. And my mom, in her infinite wisdom, didn't go to the dark place and say, this is this. It could have easily done that, right? And then maybe I grew up an angry person because of it. But instead, she said, it's an ignorant person. And anyone who uses that word is ignorant themselves.
Right.
So the next day I went back to school and I called all of those kids who called me the N-word, the N-word. And you know who got suspended? Me. Not them, but me. Yeah. And I get it. It was the retaliation. They didn't see the initial part. I get that part. But come on now. Come on now. Anything that most kids, not all, but most kids are pretty honest. Sometimes to a fault. Like they'll tell you to your face that, you know, you're whatever, because that's what they see. So, but the rule was applied differently. But as a result of what my mom taught me, I teach my kids the rules. They follow the rules probably to a fault, because sometimes they're afraid to do things. And it's like, yeah, but you got to understand how it's applied.
Yep.
But that's how we're supposed to teach our kids.
And
we're supposed to respect the rules and abide by them and apply them appropriately and not apply them for your advantage and to others' disadvantage. And it's sad to say that this is where the world is today.
Yep. No, it's funny you say it that way, because I literally was in that shoe on Sunday. I had to coach a soccer game. Had a ref, older gentleman. I respect all refs. First of all, I think everyone knows that from me talking on here. My dad's a ref. I've respected the rules of the game in anything I've ever played. Come across a ref, I'm coaching 10-year-olds on a soccer field. It's a fairly competitive game. We ended up in a tie. The only reason we ended up in a tie is my team got called 4 times separately on inadvertent handballs and or offsides, different combinations thereof. When the other team got 1. And I had a bad example during the game where I had a player in the field. My guy had the ball. He kicks it straight into the other kid. The other kid turns around. Clear handball. No call. So my kid immediately freezes because he knows the rules. And he's like, hey, handball. Ref's right on top of him, stares him down, kind of talks down to him, my own player, and says, you're not the one calling the rule around here. I am. It's your handball for having stopped the game. Other team's kicking. I was about to go irate and go crazy, but knowing that I've got all these kids in front of me.
You don't win. You don't win.
Exactly.
It's just the perception of your actions, not exactly the way you're applying your actions to the situation.
I know for a fact in my own world, in my experience, I'm not going to get crazy in front of these kids and in front of the parents and everyone else. But immediately after the game, I asked for an explanation from the ref. I'm like, look, you've got a lot of bias calling going on. It's not just me. The other coach even saw it and even recognized it at the end of the game. He's like, yeah, the calls weren't that great. That was literally our handshake at the end of the game. And I'm sitting there like, give me at least an explanation. Be respectful, ref.
Nothing. What was his explanation?
Guy just turned his back to me and he's like, you need to follow the rules. Otherwise, I'll card you.
See, and again, now I'm going to use my position to further
exactly
punish you rather than explain or admit because referees make mistakes. We're human.
No, and that's the thing. They will make mistakes, but to have it so blatantly called in such a one-way direction throughout the game and to not at least justify to me, at least a standing. My last comment to him was, I'm glad the kids didn't see this. Literally, and I just walked off. Because I mean, it was a level of disrespect that I have not seen at a youth sport in a while. And that's where it kind of shook me in that way. But like you said, someone who may have used his influence and power to do whatever he felt like was necessary at whatever way. And I'm not going to make judgment, but at the same time, to your point, that's where we need to have an appreciation for consistency in sports and everything else.
That's what it's supposed to be about.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be consistent across all timelines, across all races, situations.
And more to your point,
then I can understand.
I mean, kind of like the example that your mom gave you. Your mom gave you basically a history lesson as the education, right? In that sense of what you had to go through. And that's the thing. Like I would appreciate that rather than someone ignoring me and not wanting to at least have a conversation.
Exactly. And that's where we lack. I think more times than not in today's society, we don't take advantage of the opportunities to have conversations so that we can understand perspective.
Yes.
And whether or not we agree with it, just having an understanding of how someone sees things can help us become closer, help us dissolve or resolve conflict, and help us to grow into better people, because now we can see what the other side sees and we can understand more of their perspective. We don't have to agree with it, but maybe you have a reason for you did something and I don't know it, and I could at least appreciate hearing the reason. But we don't do that anymore. When people feel like they're above reproach, and again,
shut out.
Believe in, I'm not, we all judge to some degree. If you're very religious, that you would say that we don't have a right to judge. It's, whatever deity that you have faith in, that you would say is the ultimate judge. But we know what's right and wrong. We know what's reasonable and not reasonable. And if we have opportunities to engage, maybe we could come up with something that's more suitable for both sides than it just being one side or the other and being more black and white, because there's a lot of gray.
Like any and every controversy in the world is a teachable moment for both sides.
Yes.
In every side. And that, if that's the positive take we can take as a society, I think we all develop as better people. That's my personal take. Versus, like you said, the interaction being bad, or someone turning a blind eye to something or whatever it is. It just doesn't help anyone.
Imagine, like you felt, the guy turned his back and then threatened you.
Yeah.
He just dismissed your whole position and desire to take advantage of the opportunity to know a little bit more. Now, granted, you were basically challenging him to explain himself. But again, why can't we do that? That's the kind of dialogue that helps us grow. Maybe the next time he says that thing, you say, yeah, but you're penalizing the kids. And then he thinks about it next time and says, hey, you know what? As much as I might think this, how am I helping the kids in this situation? And maybe he does something different.
Well, and that was my follow-up. So, we had our game Sunday. Same kid yesterday. We have soccer practice. He's like, hey, he's like, why didn't he call that foul? And I'm like, hey, you know what? You're not going to get everything your way ever in life. So I kind of tried to make it a teachable moment for him at the same time. Say, look, you're never going to get everything in your way in your life. But at the same time, when it comes to the soccer field, don't play until you hear a whistle.
And that's key. Never teaching moment. Never assume that the referees are making a call. Play until you hear the whistle. Play through you hearing the whistle.
Play through the whistle. Exactly.
You will never be at a disadvantage.
Worst case is they stop you. Yeah. Worst case is they stop you after the fact if they've blown a whistle. So you know what? Play through it every time. And that's what I try to encourage my kids. I'm like, and then even in life, until you see something stop you, go for your dreams. Go for whatever you need to.
That's right. And I have to say, just bringing up that story I told, that's one of the very many reasons I love my mother and think she's a great person, regardless if she wasn't my mother or not, is because she took that situation and she picked cotton. People think picking cotton was like in the 1800s. No, that shit happened in the 1950s too. She picked cotton, and the story she told me about sharecropping and the fact that they helped somebody who owned the land make millions of dollars, and they basically were told, because they didn't have access, that they didn't make any money this year and you guys owe us, or we're even because you stayed on our land, you ate some of the food, you did this, did that, so you're even. Hearing that, and for her to take that opportunity to teach me to still do the right thing, still understand things, not in an angry, emotional way, but for what it really was. And she explained it like you would in a Webster's dictionary. That's how she did it. She didn't say, hey, you know what? I'm mad at what happened to me, and I'm mad that they're doing that to you, and you need to be mad too. Then I would have become the next angry brother, and who knows, I might not have ever achieved the things that I achieved because I would have had a chip on my shoulder and a different way of looking at things, and I wouldn't see everybody as an equal, but I'd see somebody trying to put me down. So thank you, Mom, for looking at that. And for those who are listening, that's the way you need to approach every situation. So one, you're enlightening your kids and you're arming them with the right type of perspective and understanding so that they can make a positive impact in the world instead of a negative one.
And I'll twist that example to something that happened in sports this past weekend. So WNBA kicked off their season. You had a matchup with the Indiana and in Chicago, Caitlin Clark and everyone else in the Indiana home squad, if you will, versus our favorite characters in Chicago, if you will. And if you know what I'm talking about, there was a hard foul that took place.
He squared gave a hard foul. Yep.
Angel Reese took very bad exception to it and wanted to kind of get aggressive about it. And one of the things that's kind of hurt her persona is this different kind of spin that she puts on publicly, unfortunately, at times, where she feels like she's the one being targeted or she's the
victim. I'm the victim.
The victim. Versus kind of making it a good moment. Now, I believe my colleague and I here have talked about this foul offline and saying, look, we think it was a clean foul, and here's why. In any other situation on a basketball court, doesn't matter who the characters are, doesn't matter what gender, doesn't matter anything. When you have a free bucket to an opposite player, your job as a defender is to go up and take the foul because that is the way the game is played. You don't just give up a gimme basket.
That's right.
You do what's in the best interest of your team because statistically, and we'll play math here, you put someone on the foul line, they're likely to not get as many points. Simple as that.
Right.
And frankly, I think because of the personas of the two individuals involved, obviously things got blown out of hand in terms of media and everything else. And of course, I think part of this does fall on Angel Reese. I hate to say.
100% agree with that.
So, and that's the thing. And that's where I kind of want to spin this back. It's like you can make everything a more positive outcome, kind of like what Roy's saying here. And Angel Reese, I think, needs to take a little bit more appreciation, perhaps, of her own awareness of what she's doing in terms of her persona, both on and off the court, and not play necessarily the victim card. Because this is not about race. No. It's about how you carry yourself in whatever you want to do.
Yes. And I appreciate you saying that. And you're right. These are what we've talked about offline. And, listen, I'm Black. And I just told you a story. I've gone through some of the worst racism. I've been spit at, kicked at. I've had police officers shake their head because my white wife and I were crossing the street and he said, ain't that a shame? I've gone through some of the worst things in my lifetime and still continue to go through that. So just want to say that because we think that we've evolved. I feel like we're devolving, not evolving, because I shouldn't still be going through the things I went through in the mid-70s today, 50 years later, but I still do. And Angel Reese, and I took a different approach. I don't go about things with hate. I go about things with love. I try to, back, especially when I was younger, I wanted to be that example where you looked at me and you said, see, Black people aren't bad. See, Black people are like me. And I feel like Angel Reese, that moment, and I get it, she's got a little fire about her and that helps her with the game and all of that. But her reaction to what happened helps to fuel the fire of ignorance and prejudice and all of these things, because she wasn't a victim. That is a foul that everybody would give to anyone else in that situation. It wasn't even flagrant, regardless of what the referee said at the end of the day. She could have easily, if you watch the play, Angel Reese pushes the person on the other team on Indiana out of the way to get the rebound. The ref didn't make that call. So part of this is on them, going back to referees and being perfect and not making the right calls. And because they didn't, Caitlin Clark felt she had to foul it because she's right there at the basket. She
Absolutely.
didn't push her down. She didn't kick her. She didn't do any of that stuff. She just hit her on her arm enough to make sure she couldn't make the basket.
And also take appreciation of the fact, and again, not trying to defend or retaliate, but Caitlin Clark took the foul and immediately just turned around and walked away. It wasn't like she stared her down, nothing stupid,
yeah, none of that stuff. And that's where Angel Reese could have taken this. And imagine what this would do for the world, the people watching basketball, the kids, the girls and boys watching these ladies play. Imagine if she just took it, said, and went to the free throw line and just hit the shot.
Exactly.
You know, that would have been classy on her part. And that's how you get people to respect and like you. You going the other way and wanting to fight everybody in the stadium, okay, not that this is right, but if I'm in the fans, or I'm the fans in the stands, and I'm just going to say this, and this isn't a lie, you might not like it, but Indiana is not necessarily, you know, isn't that the birthplace of the Ku Klux Klan?
Virtually.
I'm just saying that they are not known to be color friendly. Not everybody. Not saying that some aren't, but there are many others that are. That's when they start going, see that N-word, see. So you're fueling the fire.
Exactly.
Well, and Angel Reese has the platform now and the ability to promote change and perception, not only of her own persona and her own brand, but how people view the whole sport, the whole idea of race. She has a chance to put a positive spin on all of these things, and she didn't take advantage of it.
Think about the best characters in all of sport that we've got. And I take this back to something as simple as look at Michael and Kobe. Michael and Kobe arguably were fouled like crazy in the time that they were playing. Did you see Michael Jordan once get up and try to complain?
I'm going to say yes. I never seen him get up and try to fight unless it was Reggie Miller in Indiana.
If anything, though, what I'm really getting at is it just fueled him more to do better. That's the thing.
That's it. And that's what you try to do. And Angel, if you're listening, if somebody's listening that knows her, if she takes that approach and says, okay, if that's how you're going to do it, I'm going to show you why you shouldn't do that in the future. That's how you do it. You let your play be the guide, not your mouth. Because the mouth, and just like my mom tried to diffuse that, you don't always take the emotion out before you respond. So sometimes the emotion carries you way past the line of reason and giving an opportunity for others to listen to you. But your actions you can't dispel the actions. They are what they are. Hey, you know what? I just turned around. I hit those 2 free throws. Bam. How you like that?
Yep. And that's the thing. Think about if that would have spun the other direction. Okay. Angel Reese walks away. She sinks her free throws. She can even do a little stare down if afterwards. And it still wouldn't be aggressive, you know? It still shows the competitive spirit. It shows the rivalry. It actually helps us appreciate it more honestly, and as a fan, in my opinion, if she would have done that.
Me too. And it shows maturity.
Yes.
I think some of this is immaturity. And again, don't get me wrong. There are some things inside of me I can't let people even know about how I feel because of what has happened to me throughout my life. But what I don't do is take that and apply it to each situation that I'm in. Because that's how you make things worse. Not better. I take the things I compartmentalize that. I try to figure out a best way to never get to these places, and I then try to influence my situations to that point. That's what you need to do, Angel, and every person that's out there, black, white, or other, do that, and I bet you the world will be better. You will be better.
Now, I will defend sports figures, celebrities, whatever, because there is a somewhat undue pressure on them to right? So anytime they're confronted with a situation like this, or even if a celebrity is poached by paparazzi, whatever it is, they have to think that. But that's where experience needs to come into play. You've got to respect your wisdom at that in that position.
And that's why I said it was immature, because the whole idea of wisdom is through experience. And when you haven't had enough of those, you might rely more on emotion and things that aren't necessarily going to give you the best outcomes.
Yep. And frankly, the people that are the most mature in the most, stressful moments are the most revered people in all of sport. Exactly. I mean, again, going back to Scottie Scheffler, the guy's ice cold in the toughest moments on the golf course. And we haven't seen something like that since Tiger. And even before that, it's Nicholas and that whole cat. I mean, this is special to watch. And, I hope it sustains. He's done it for 4 or 5 years now. And I think it'll go further because he's still fairly young. And he's honestly just now getting to his greatness, in my opinion, in terms of the control he has.
I think so. But just not to get off of the one thing, and we will start talking about, we got other things to talk about, basketball-oriented, hockey-oriented. But I want to say this. I actually like Angel Reese. I like her fire and her want. I don't like how she responds to pressure situations when it comes to something that isn't really race related that becomes race related.
Right.
It shouldn't be like that. Angel, you're on a platform with Caitlin Clark, and now you have Paige coming in, Beckles. You got an opportunity, the three of you, to change the face of the WNBA and bring up people who want to be like you, who want to emulate you. Do you want them to walk around angry with a scowl, or do you want them to pursue greatness by putting that emotion into the dedication of their sport and have their actions be the ones that speak loudest, not the words?
Think about this year alone. When has there ever been hype like this for a regular season in any sport, regardless men or women? And even within basketball, WNBA regular season has more hype than the NBA had for 82 games.
That's the C-squared Caitlin Clark effect. And we then ride that, people. Ride that. And while you're doing the journey, help teach the people around who admire you and admire your sport how they should be conducting themselves and viewing it as an entertainment opportunity and appreciating the will and desire that the people on the court are displaying and not the color that they wear on their skin. If you can do that, that's going to do the most for your sport.
Exactly. Nope. 100% agree. 100% agree. Now, on that note, speaking of
use the same expression. On that note,
speaking of the NBA, so we are at that point in time where the NBA is freaking exciting to watch. And we've got our Final Four now. Now, we had some exciting Game 7s. We had some blowaways. We had all sorts of stuff happen. But now we're at the down and dirty. You got OKC, you got the Timberwolves, you got the Knicks and Pacers. This is honestly what I think the media wanted and what the general public wanted. And to my colleague's point, imagine if we get the Knicks and the Wolves in the final.
I am so hopeful of that scenario. I think it would really help to promote the concepts of what trades are supposed to do for teams.
Exactly.
And if you could take two teams that traded some of their best players to each other, and it actually worked for both teams, because sometimes it works for one, it doesn't work for the other, or maybe not work for either one of them. But for them to trade such high-profile players to each other and then get the results that they're getting right now, man, all of the other teams that are trading or getting, doing things, and you're not achieving that, you are doing something wrong.
I feel like over the last 20 years, when you look at, regardless of sport, baseball, basketball, football, you're always getting these trades that are square peg, round hole, as I like to call them. You take the best piece that might be out there in free agency and you try to make it fit in your own team. And generally speaking, it hasn't worked. This is one of those rare scenarios where it was circle for circle and both fit because both had mutual needs. They figured out the needs, regardless of high, low level, whatever it was. And now you've got the perfect merriment of true success here, true success here. I want to see a battle.
Me too. I think that it can happen. The Knicks are favored against the Pacers. The Pacers are a wild card because they have a really good offense at times. They got actually enough size and fire to play good, defense as well. But they don't have Jalen Brunson. And if Big Cat can be a big cat and not a little cat, then I think the Knicks will prevail. On the other side of the coin, though, man, OKC is just rough. They got the best defense. They got a defense. They got the MVP. What they don't have is a lot of experience. And that could be something that could help the Minnesota Timberwolves, even though they are fairly young. They've been to this point just recently, just last year. Right?
Yeah, they're the giant killers. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
Ant-Man shows up when Ant-Man shows up. He is truly that superhero for a team right now. He hasn't gotten to that stratosphere yet where I'm going to put him in a conversation like an AI from back in the 2000s or anything like that.
Love AI.
But I have a feeling that this guy's on the verge. Like he's getting there. A couple more years like this where he can carry a team into the playoffs, take him on a run, and he's got the right pieces around him, and he's got everything operating. He's got the big man in the middle with Gobert. He's got Naz Reid outside. Like they've got good pieces. And like I said, with this whole trade piece, it worked out so well. Julius Randle's probably playing like Julius Randle can be playing. Like he's not one of those guys that just shows up. He's literally doing the job that he's supposed to do at his position, which is great to see. And then the other piece that people maybe missed or just don't talk about as much on the trade front, you took DiVincenzo away from his Villanova boys, put him on the Wolves.
I love that commercial, by the way. That commercial hit me here.
Yeah.
I love that commercial.
and that's what makes it awesome.
I think it'll be a great storyline. They can make a new commercial like, hey, we're on different sides of the fence, but we get a chance to see each other again. I tell you what, though, about OKC, Chet Holmgren is that wild card. Mm-hmm. I think he's versatile enough. If he could stay healthy, he's that really scrawny, skinny kid, 7'1", but he's got moves like Jagger. He's got moves
like a slinky out there. He'll
the dude can play. He can play some ball. And I think that's going to be a great series. I just want to remind people, as much as OKC was anointed, this year to win the championship because of their record and because of Shea and all of that, last year, when you were talking about Ant-Man was anointed as the next. I hate when they say the next Jordan because nobody's going to achieve that. But he was that next face of the NBA. And once LeBron and Steph leave the game, and Durant, which Durant isn't the face of anything anymore. You got to win, Durant. Stop piggybacking on people who already won to get your titles and show that you can be the man yourself, which you can't.
Yep.
He's going to be the face. John Morant could have been that guy, but John Morant wanted to be Billy the Kid, and thought that I'm going to lose $200 million in endorsement money because I'm sitting in the club with my boys showing them how cool I am.
My better example there is Yosemite Sam. Yeah.
Yosemite Sam. I like that one. Ant-Man doesn't have that. Ant-Man, if you want to be, if there's anything that I would say, probably more so than any other athlete in basketball, be like LeBron. Unlike Jordan, unlike Kobe, they were killers. Kobe was a little bit better with the media and how he handled that and being, visible and accessible. Jordan was not as much. He controlled the environments always. LeBron, what have you heard about LeBron? LeBron has played in the league for 20 plus years, whatever. The guy is older than dirt. But you never hear about a scandal. You don't hear about his entourage. AI, as much as I loved you, if you'd have gotten rid of your entourage, you would have been that much better and that much richer. He doesn't have that. His entourage made billions. They created businesses. They kept the right kind of support for him while also having the right kind of approach to the brand. To make sure that the brand isn't tarnished. And if Ant-Man can do that, he will be the next face of the NBA.
I mean, he's starting a little rough with his off the court, endeavors. I do have to give it. Well, I don't know if it was his agent. I don't know if it was the people around him. I don't know what it was. I do have to give him some bit of credit for paying off his child support in one payment, whatever that was.
Hey, do that. He wasn't Sean Kemp, and he realized, let me take care of this now, because I'm about to make some bigger money, and we don't need any.
He's like, I'm going to close the books on this chapter, and I'm going to try to reinvent myself. So maybe he got some good image, good advice, whatever it was, and I hope that does work for him. But yeah, you're right. Like, as far as an image, this kid's young. He's got the talent. He's got everything going for him. Don't do a jaw. Don't do stupid shit. Stay positive and honestly stay as the potential face of the league, going forward. Because it's going to be guys like him, guys like Giannis, and Jokic. You got a three-headed monster there that could lead the future of the NBA, along with a few others, obviously SGA and everybody else. SGA and Chet is great too. Like that's a great I love it. That's a great Batman Robin combo right there too. Yeah. So it's special.
Brunson could be another one of those pieces.
Brunson's another dog.
But talk about his transformation from the Dallas Mavericks, who were sorry they let him go, to what he's been for the Knicks. He could be another one of those. This guy was the clutch. He got the award for the most clutch player in 2025 because of what he does when it counts.
And another piece I'll give to Brunson, great family dynamic. His dad's involved. His dad
he was a former player.
Yes. So
for everybody, for any of the young people that were listening, when we said AI, that isn't artificial intelligence. That's Allen Iverson. That was the true AI. They made it come up with this now. That's who AI was 20 years ago.
He was the original artificial intelligence because he carried a team being 5'11" or 6 foot, whatever the hell he is in real life. Because on paper they marked him at 6, but there's no way.
Yeah, his heart is as big as my head. That guy would take you on the court, and if you were 7 feet tall, he'd still dunk on you. Did you hear he was less than 6 feet tall? That's how he played. So just so you know, when you say AI, that's what AI is.
Yeah, name me a player other than maybe like Eric Snow and Dikembe Mutombo we ever had with the 76ers to carry them to the finals every single time. Like,
yeah, exactly. Who?
Yeah. So if there was a hero that ever came out, it was the original AI. Like I said, and that's where I kind of see, like, if Anthony Edwards can get there, and he'll have obviously more supporting cast around him because I think they also have a good ownership group with the Timberwolves. Alex Rodriguez is there. They've got some good things going in that place.
Agreed.
They could build a contender for years to come, and it's going to be great to watch that series between what I think is a deeper OKC team and a Timberwolves team that knows how to play exceptionally well with their 6. And that's going to be a good coaching matchup, I think, on both sides. And
remember this: OKC's got the #1 defensive rating, I think, in the regular season, maybe in the postseason. Minnesota was second.
Yep.
And Minnesota beat some teams that others thought might be at this spot this year and last year.
Yep.
So don't count Minnesota short. And if anything, they're probably going. Oklahoma City has deep enough, and they got enough guys that can run it, enough fouls to give to run it. Edwards, and he's had his struggles against teams like that. But you got a lot of other guys on this team, the Reeds and such.
I'm going to tell you what they're going to do, though. I think here's my prediction. OKC has got one little magic bullet that I love, and it was a great pickup from them from the Bulls. His name is Alex Caruso.
God, Caruso is the man.
Caruso is going to be that headbanded guy that's going to be annoying the hell out of Ant-Man. I think he's going to be marked up on him, and it's going to be exceptional to watch that dynamic matchup because you're going to get trash talk both ways.
Big trash talk. You got to love that.
That's going to be a fun matchup.
I think it's going to be a fun matchup, and I'm sorry to see Caruso be so good on another team than the Bulls. But
the thing is, you saw that coming with the Lakers. In his last season with the Lakers, he was exceptional. And I don't even know why the Lakers parted with him. Maybe because they were getting what's his name, the other white guy that's there now. But even then, Caruso had that making of the next pit bull, in the NBA.
And that's what you need. You need one of those guys on your team. And if the
Josh
guy,
Hart.
but he was giving up what? I don't know, 6 or more inches to Jokic, and he was skiing him up.
Yeah, exactly. So
Gotta love that.
So no, like I said, you always need one dog on the court when it comes to a championship team. So then every one of these teams has one. That's what's special. You got the Carusos, you got the Ant-Mans, you got Naz Reeds, you got on the Knicks, you got Josh Hart and the Villanova kids.
That's their guy. That's their guy. People think, I give Brunson all the credit. Big Cat has been showing up, but Hart is a rebounding machine. He goes in there, he gets in there dirty down and gets it. He gives them out extra opportunities. He's the guy playing the defense. Love Josh Hart. Everybody needs either him or Caruso on their team to be successful.
Pacers, Halliburton's a stone cold killer. We know that. We've seen it in the playoffs already. It depends on what kind of supporting cast he gets with the Indiana Pacers. I'm gonna root for the Knicks. I think it's gonna be a very close series up and down between both teams. But I'll go Knicks in 7 at the Garden in a special Eastern Conference final. And on the other end, I'm going OKC only because I think they have 2 pit bulls. The other guy we don't talk about is the German sensation, Mr. Hardenstein, who happens to be black.
Who happens to be black, but you wouldn't know that because of his German and black father. And another part of that I think is cool is that the New York Knicks gave him away. He was just on the Knicks last year, and he actually did pretty well in the playoffs. Yeah, so That would be an interesting dynamic. I'm going to go a little different than you.
Yep.
I'm rooting for the Knicks because I want the Knicks Timberwolves, but Indiana might give them some trouble. And I think the worst thing about being in a franchise in New York and LA is that God forbid you lose the first game or even the second game. You're going to have so many doubts. You're going to have the fans ready to just throw in the towel and all of these things, which puts pressure on the team itself. I'm still going to root for the Knicks because I want to see the Knicks against Timberwolves. And I do think that Minnesota has the ability to beat Oklahoma City. And I'm going to go with Minnesota in 6, believe this or not. And I'm going with New York in 6 as well.
See, I'm going OKC 6, and I'm going Knicks in 7 with a special night at the Garden in Game 7. Can you imagine that ticket?
Well, I don't know. Could you afford it? Could you even afford to stand outside? They'd probably charge you just for standing outside that day.
Game 5 the other day. I mean, what was it? Or sorry, Game 4 apparently was the cheapest nosebleed seats were $700 at the Garden, and the floor seats were $27,000. It's a Super Bowl if you think about it.
I just don't understand that. I'm the one, and maybe it's just I'm a little cheap. I'm not really cheap, but I'm frugal. I'm frugal. If I'm going to spend $700 to not really see it from way back there, then I might as well just throw a party and get Fogle the Show to cater it and spend $700 on that. And
I'm sorry, but these days they sell a 100-inch TV for $1,800 at Costco. I can watch nose hairs. I can watch nose hairs versus having to wear binoculars at a stadium.
Exactly, and you still make a profit.
Yes, sir.
You save money. So I would love to see it. I think what I would love to see, and throughout this whole series, you're going to constantly see the whole Reggie versus Patrick or versus John Starks or whomever you want to pick out on the Knicks. They're going to show all of that. They showed it this morning.
I can't wait to see the celebrity sightings. It's going to be great to watch.
I would love if there was a Game 7. I would love for Reggie Miller, because he's one of the broadcasters or whatever, to put on his old jersey and walk on the court. I would love to see that. First off, it might scare the shit out of the Knicks because Reggie Miller was the Knick killer. He was the Knick killer.
So on Celebrity Row, I would love to see Ewing, Starks, the entire 1999 band on one side, and then Reggie Miller and his crew.
On the other side.
Yeah, Rick Smith's out.
Yeah, Reggie Miller and the Davis brothers. That's what I'd like to see. Like, that should be the two of them. And maybe Mark Jackson, too.
Yes. That would, I'm telling you, this has all the makings of a great show. And I think, I forget whether game 1's tonight or tomorrow night for the Eastern Conference. It's one of the other.
Eastern Conference tomorrow night. Tonight is the Western Conference
tonight. Yeah. So I think we're in for a treat. First 2 games in the Garden. That's going to make it kind of special. First 2 games in OKC. And again, that crowd, that's been impressing me too. They've got a lot of heart out of OKC.
And they should, because they don't have anything else out in OKC. What else do you have? You have no pro anything teams. Baseball, football. You just count.
It takes a long time to get places there. Let's put it that way. It's too big. Been there, done that, seen that, stayed there. No.
I actually had fun. I met Billy Sims when we went to a bar. I went because I have a lot of relatives in Arkansas, so we drove to Oklahoma. This is like in the 80s, late 80s, mid to late 80s. I mean, it's a different kind of place, but we had a good time. And the fact that I met a former professional football player was a cool thing.
Yep.
But yeah, if somebody said you got a choice, well, if it was Minnesota, Oklahoma, I'm not sure. But if it was Oklahoma and Chicago or New York or LA or, something like that, for sure, I'm going to go where it's most populated.
Absolutely.
Plus, I feel sorry for all of those people who are in the, what do they call that? Tornado Alley?
Yes.
To see the devastation that those things do on a daily basis, on a yearly basis, I'm surprised to see so many people still living in that area.
Fun fact, and I'll bring up an aside about weather. So if you look at the weather last few years, obviously we've had a lot more storms and stuff around the country, yada, yada, yada. Tornado Alley's always been Tornado Alley. Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, it always exists, and there's always going to be a risk. The risk is actually moving further east, if you've noticed. Tennessee, battered last few years. Even today, actually, they're going through a bad storm. It's just ridiculous. Things kind of shift into the southeast, and you get these floods and all this other craziness. Fun follow on YouTube if you get a chance. Look up Ryan Hall. It's called Ryan Hall Y'all. So not to go, not to digress on government and stuff, but obviously with the defunding of a lot of the national agencies like the Weather Service and stuff like that, there's a few other independent folks that have kind of picked up this slack, if you will, of providing real-time weather and storm chasing and all that cool stuff. Ryan Hall Young, honestly, I was addicted. I got turned on to this on Friday night because we had a storm here, and I was like, one of my friends texted me, like, hey, check out your Ryan Hall Young. I'm like, all right, this dude's 2 seconds before my own news. Like, that's how good he was. Like, he has a weather team of like young guys, 20, 30-year-olds sitting in a little mega center. They're tracking storms live around the country. It's a cool follow. And you can sit there and drink beer and have fun and listen to this guy.
All right. Well, we got to do that. Ryan Hall, y'all.
Yes, Ryan Hall, y'all. But I digress. But hopefully the weather holds up for everything going on around the country for, all the different sports going on. But like I said, Memorial Weekend, lots of stuff going on. But like I said, with tonight, NBA basketball kicks off. We're in the Final Four. It's going to be a fun time.
Yep, and you actually got the hockey playoffs going in the same place as far as being in the conference finals. Looking forward to seeing that. I'm sorry that Washington didn't make it. I think Ovechkin's story was a good one to beat Gretzky. My wife hates it. She's a super hard Gretzky fan. I love Gretzky too, but records are made to be broken. And
that was done with pure class throughout the year.
And the thing about that is, and I'll even give this to LeBron too. It's one thing if somebody's just staying in and it's like the guy that they put in the game so they can say he kept his streak alive, but he had no contribution.
Yep.
Ovechkin is still scoring goals like he's in his youth, more so than many in the NHL. And like you said, he's done it with class. He's a well-liked guy from what I've seen and heard. So kudos to him. I wish they could have gone further, but right now it's Florida against the Hurricanes, and who knows what's going to happen there. That's going to be a
great series. It's a great series. Two organizations that have done a stellar job building their hockey programs all together. It's funny that the Southeast United States has the dominance in hockey. If you look at it from a perspective,
that doesn't even make sense. Doesn't even make sense.
I'm sorry, Canada, not this time.
They still got Edmonton's still in it.
Edmonton's got a solid. Yes.
Yeah, they got a solid team. Now, whether or not they can, win this series and the next, we'll see. I think Edmonton and their teams, I'm sorry, Canada, that's what you got, hockey, right?
Yeah.
And the Toronto Raptors.
Exactly. You're hockey.
So you want to win. You have that legacy from the old Gretzky teams with Yari Curry and everybody else, and Grant and all of that. But I'm not sure they're going to pull it off. I think that they still are a little short.
Is it kind of funny that the most storied hockey program in all of Canada is probably still the Toronto Maple Leafs, and yet
no,
they win games 7 at home.
I think it's Montreal Canadiens. I wouldn't give them Maple
Leafs. Canadiens do have more history. I'll give you credit.
Canadians, in my opinion.
But even then, with Toronto being your biggest draw, if you will, in general, because Montreal's a smaller city, but it's obviously got a lot of pride to it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you not win Game 7 at home as a Toronto Maple Leafs Canadian?
And I think it's like the third or fourth time that they've had that and lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, but their phenom Matthews scored 3 goals throughout the whole playoffs. 3.
That's true.
If your best player, your most known player, is not performing, it's going to be hard for you to win.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's sort of where they were, and that's why they lost.
And I will say this to the general folks that are watching. Playoff hockey is arguably the greatest playoff in most sport to watch because it's just so exciting from start to finish.
It is exciting. It's power-packed. And for those who don't watch hockey or know a lot about hockey, hockey is just as physical as football. If you watch it, these guys are going super fast, throwing their bodies left and right, and it's still the only sport that fighting is sort of part of the sport. I mean, they don't do it like they used to, back when Probert was in the house from Detroit and then on the Hawks. They don't do it like then. Ty Domi, I think his son plays.
Yes, Ty Domi.
Yep. But that's the only sport that allows fighting. You see fighting in baseball, that's sort of in the sport. But hockey, the referees are just sort of like, okay, we're going to let them go for a few more minutes, and then we'll step in.
I'm going to go sideways and say there's better boxing in hockey than there is actual boxing.
I 100% agree with you. That's why I stopped watching boxing. MMA is different. Boxing, I agree. Because there's some clutching and grabbing in hockey, but they're also throwing punches. In boxing, the bigger that they become, the more clutching and grabbing you see, and it's just so that they can hold themselves up.
Yep, exactly. So no, it's fun to watch. But no, playoff hockey, if you haven't done it and you get the opportunity, any in the world, you don't have to be a fan of either team. Go watch it. It is truly fun to watch in person. It's truly honestly, I think both of us were spoiled by the fact of the success of the Blackhawks over the last few years. In the 2000s, it was just awesome to be in an environment like that.
Agreed. It's unfortunate that they haven't come back to prominence. And I think when you said that about the Toronto Maple Leafs, aren't they one of the original 8? I think it was.
Yeah, and that's the reason I say that. It's kind of like the Bears, that kind of thing.
Yep. So it'd be nice to see all of those teams rise and come back into the prominence, dominance. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Not with the Bears this year. No,
definitely not. Well, it's interesting you brought that up. We can close out on NFL. Yeah. So I was looking, they released the NFL schedule. So now you can you got the Vegas setting lines on wins and losses for teams and everything else. And I was looking at some of the predictions they were showing. I forget who it was. And they actually had the Bears finishing ahead of Minnesota in the NFC North, which I thought was surprising. I mean, granted, they're going to lose Darnold, and they're gaining the rookie, and the rookie did okay.
And McCarthy
got hurt. I'm curious to see where that is. I'm hopeful that all 4 teams make the playoffs this year.
The NFC North is deep. Yeah, the NFC North is super deep, and I will say that. In fact, I think it was yesterday, the Green Bay Packers actually gave a guaranteed contract of like almost $17 million to their wide receiver, Golden, that they got in the draft, which was pretty impressive for Green Bay to commit so early to a receiver like that. So it's kind of interesting to watch. Now, they got all the pieces there in Green Bay. Obviously, they got to shore up the defense, but they got all the pieces on offense. Bears are trying to complete the other side of the ball on the defense. They've got pieces on offense. They got to get them clicked together. New coach should help. The Lions are the Lions. Dan Campbell's going to have those boys cooking. We know that.
One of the best coaches in the league, in my opinion. A player's coach for real.
Yep, and then frankly, the Vikings, same thing. They've got all the pieces there. JJ McCarthy's now a year sat, and now he's going to take over the reins. I think they've got all the pieces too. They got John. You got Jefferson and boys all over there.
You got Jefferson, either the first or second best receiver in the league.
Exactly. So I mean, at the end of the day, the NFC North is going to be fierce. Now, going back to the schedule, I have a real beef as a Chiefs fan, and I agree with Mr. Kelsey on this one. Why the hell do you have them traveling all the way to Brazil and playing Thanksgiving and playing Christmas where they don't have a single holiday?
Well, I think this is sort of like what you had when we talked about center and why they posed the ban in between the two most important tournaments of the year, because they want their product to be out there. And the Chiefs are the best known team in the NFL when you talk globally.
Yes.
Besides maybe Dallas, but Dallas sucks.
Yeah.
So I could see them doing it, but I think it's a bit unfair for the Chiefs to be asked to do all of that traveling on certain days, like the Brazil is one thing, but Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yes, like one or the other I get. And now you're playing the America's team, as you say, on Thanksgiving. Now, why aren't we sending America's team abroad? Because I haven't seen the Cowboys travel once across the country, or even across the country in Europe.
Yeah, that's who they should be. They should be out in when they do the European England thing. Yes. They got the Brazil or Mexico thing. They should be sending them down there.
They've got Brazil, they've got London, they got Germany and Spain this year. Think about that.
Hey, all I got to say is London, Munich, Paris, Munich. Everybody talk about pop music. Anybody remembers that?
I do. That was a good one. But no, I mean, and honestly, it's an interesting slate they've crafted in the NFL. Honestly, every week has some dramatic matchups. The Chiefs obviously start out with the Chargers in Brazil, but then you immediately come back to the Eagles in week 2. And then in week 1, you're starting with Cowboys-Eagles game 1 of the season, which is just crazy.
That could get ugly. It could be a great thing for the Cowboys, but it could also be like the worst thing for the Cowboys to get off on that note and lose by 30 against the reigning Super Bowl champions. That could be ugly.
I mean, the NFL has traditionally tried to set up divisional matchups toward December so they can create more dramatic effect to the playoffs, right? But this year, if you look, like I was talking to an Eagles fan that we know, and the Eagles fan mentioned, like, the beginning of the year, they got the Cowboys, they got the Chiefs, but then they played the Commanders twice in the last 3 weeks of the season. You're telling me that's not going to be like the divisional matchup at the end of the year, potentially? I mean, that's just kind of crazy to have all that crammed in for that little slot during Christmas.
Yeah, but talk about the drama. If things were to work out like they did last year, this year, that's going to be the game you're going to want to watch, because that can move all of the playoff seedings and everything else. So I'm hopeful that Jake Daniels will live up to, there's that sophomore jinx kind of thing that we talk about in various sports. I hope that he's able to live up to the hype, because he's shown that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, even as a rookie last year. But I wonder, I think Philly, they just got a dominant team.
They do. And the fact that they sign everything. I mean, think about it. They re-signed and they retooled their defense with another DP from Alabama. So, I mean, you got a monster building in Philly, in my opinion. And they got the right coaching. They got the right players. They can sustain a good 3 or 4 year run, I think, with the way they've got the money set up over there, which is pretty impressive. Kansas City, I think, is going to take a little slip this year. A little slip.
See, now I think because they show them being top of the AFC in this one.
Top of the AFC, I think they have them at 11-5 or maybe 12-4. I can't remember which
one. They had them at 14-3, which I was shocked. And remember, there's 17 games now, so you got to get 17.
Right, yeah.
But I was shocked to see that they had them at 14-3. I still think that they could dominate. If they can win their division like they've been doing, if they can beat every team in their division like they do every year, that's 6 victories right away. Depending on which team you play from the other conference, those 4 teams, don't let it be the NFC South, because if it's the NFC South, I don't think the Chiefs going to lose against the Falcons or the Saints.
Well, we play the NFC East this year. Now we play the NFC East this year.
Okay, so you got 2 victories with Dallas and the Giants, but you might have 2 losses with the other 2 teams.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's a tough matchup. That's the reason I say, like, maybe more realistically, like 11-6, maybe even a 12-5 type season would be probably more feasible. Now, could the Bills supersede that, or the Ravens to take over in the AFC? Yes, I could see that happen, especially the Ravens. Right move, getting Derrick Henry to sign on for another 2 years. They keep all the other chess pieces in play. They got the defense still building up. They got rid of the right coordinators and stuff. It'll be interesting to see. Now, sidebar on the Ravens, just having been local around here. We obviously know what happened with Mr. Tucker and all that, right? Now, the replacement kicker they drafted in the draft, that dude's sitting at the park over here hitting 70-yarders right now.
Well, that's what he's supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do that, because Justin Tucker, he was a good kicker. I'm not sure what happened with all of that.
Now, that dude's also at the park kicking, not with the same guy, not at the same field. But apparently he's still practicing somewhere. You think he gets another job? I don't know.
You know what? After the Deshaun Watson experiment that Cleveland had, thinking that teams are leery to bring in people for high dollar amounts to have them play on their team and become a distraction, because wherever he goes, that's going to follow him. And that's going to be a question that is not only he will have to answer or discuss, but the coaches, the organization, other players. It becomes a distraction you don't need.
We've talked about this before, of how well-respected the Ravens organization is from a managerial standpoint and everything else from an ownership standpoint. Like, they're a well-oiled machine. Mm-hmm. But isn't it sad that over the last 15 years, they've had almost like 4 or 5 incidents where guys on PEDs kind of got pushed out of the way. Ray Rice happened. Tucker happened. They've had a lot of things that kind of brought the demise of some of their best players, if you will. Even Joe Flacco was just kind of cast aside, and now he's a hero for, the Cleveland Browns.
Everybody else. Yeah, exactly. I don't know, and this is when you said that about the Ravens. I think the Bills probably have the best chance because they got Josh Allen. Josh Allen, if Mahomes wasn't Mahomes, Josh Allen would be the person they talked about like Mahomes. He's shown even last year when he played with sub-level talent on receiving corps. I think they're making a mistake by not signing Cook, because I feel like he had the most touchdowns. He helped to steady that offense. He created that balance they needed.
Yeah, made it work. Yep.
Yeah. So if they don't sign him, if they didn't, they let him go, I think that's a mistake. But they would probably be the best contenders. The Ravens, for some reason, I don't care if Lamar wins an MVP from this year to the rest of his career.
Yep.
They just seem to do something since why can't I think of the linebacker who was the face of the organization?
Ray Lewis. Yeah.
What's that?
Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis. I was going to say Ray. I couldn't think of his last name. So Ray Lewis, since he's left, I felt like something happened to them. They just
they've always had like the persona for them has always been defense. And yeah, they've got characters, they've got the right pieces, but they've also let some of the right pieces go, like Patrick Queen from the Steelers now, that kind of thing. Like, it was surprising moves. And I think for the Ravens, having now lived here and understood like their whole process, their biggest problem, their biggest flaw is they've kept the coaching, they've kept the GM, and they kept the ownership intact. Their offensive and defensive coordinators, 2-year stint, and that's their problem.
But you know what? That's a problem all teams have. Look at what Detroit's going through this year. They lost their offensive and defense coordinators in one fell swoop. Right. The truth of the matter is, the better your team performs, the most likely you're going to lose the continuity that you've established because those coaches want to be head coaches too. So you end up losing those guys, and you promote somebody from special teams or from the defensive line to become these new coordinators. And while they can have an idea of what their predecessors were doing, they aren't the same, and they haven't been in that position. And it's just like what you see when, certain coaches fail. They're great offensive coordinators, but they're not good head coaches because now you have more responsibilities, and it's harder for you to be focused on the one thing when you have to look at so many.
And some guys just get pushed out, Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, but I think there's a reason. After I saw what he was doing in Washington, that dude, he made himself unavailable. He basically kicked himself out the league.
He did. And I think he's coaching high school ball now, believe it or not. That's
he will never get another chance in the NFL. He won't, because it was just seen. Even his players were like, "This dude is a jerk."
Yep. So no, like you said, it's the franchises that have seen the most sustained success have that continuity of at least an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator staying for at least 4 or 5 years.
And that's what you need. That's what you need. You need to have that one guy who, while he's hopeful to get a chance, he likes his environment, and probably even more so, puts his family ahead of his career. Most coaches do not do that.
And that's where I love what Washington's got going for them. So they got the right guy in front, and then they got the right offense coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, who now recognizes, hey, I'm not a head coach, but I can coach a hell of an offense.
You need that. And some people maybe just need a little taste. You know how you want something and then you get it and you're like, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I think those are the kind of coaches that stay longer in other areas because they realize maybe the head coaching position isn't what I thought it was, but I love being an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator.
I mean, some might say the worst place you could possibly end up is Dallas Cowboys.
Well, but see, the only difference there is the owner has to be, he's like, and this is going to be good. I have to say this. He's like Puff Daddy. Puff Daddy, when all of these new talents were arising, coming up, Biggie Small, everybody, he wanted to be in there going, take that. Here, I'm here too. I'm the one who's really running the show. He had to be part of it, right? He couldn't be in the back.
Jerry Jones was having freak-offs. Let's face facts.
What's that?
Jerry Jones was having freak-offs. We know this. Jerry Jones was having freak-offs.
It's just so funny that, like I would think that once you get to a certain position in life, especially financially, I don't want to be famous. I want to be rich. I forget who sang that song. I want to be rich. That's what I want, because I don't need to have my face out there. All I need to do is promote winners and put myself in a situation to have the best of the best as I'm doing whatever I'm doing.
I don't mean this with the meanest intent or even the worst intent, but I liken Jerry Jones to a plantation owner. And
he is.
He is.
I mean, bad comparison there.
And I say it in kind of a both a positive light because he owns a shitload of land in Texas and Oklahoma. I can tell you that for facts. That's a whole different story. But at the end of the day, he treats the Cowboys like a plantation. He's got his workhorses, and he controls them all, and that's it. And there is no sharecropping, as we like to say earlier. There is no sharing of the wealth, or even, dare I say, even the success. It's me.
It's me. It's all because of me.
Exactly.
There was another owner who did that, and he fell from the ranks as soon as that one thing that he had that made the greatness of his organizations go. Once that was gone, he's gone. Jerry Reinsdorf. Jerry Reinsdorf and Jerry Krause, and I'll give Krause credit for finding Scottie Pippen. He did a couple of things, but they were the ones who stated that organizations win championships, not players. I've never seen an organization on a field or on a court do anything other than sit there and watch their product. So then Reinsdorf was bold enough to make it sound like it's because of me that the Bulls are great. No, it wasn't. And as soon as you made all of the people mad enough who were making you great, not want to be around you anymore, Michael Jordan retired and then played for the Washington Wizards.
Yeah.
That's when you start to see that it's the players that make you great. Jerry, it's the players that make you great. And you know what else actually makes you great too? If you'd have let people like Bill Parcells be themselves and do their job, then you might have been more successful. But because you want to step in and be the man, you have brought the star down to the ground and it's no longer in the sky.
Yep. Very, very true.
You're out there with Puff Daddy going, take that, take that. You want to put that the little baby oil and be like, hey, I'm the one running the party. No.
I'm picturing an ideal situation where you have Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, Jerry Jones, and every other, crazy character they could think of at the leadership world. all on a bizarre island having a freak off. And Puff Daddy, of course, leading the way.
And we don't necessarily know because we probably won't ever hear the real truth. But
we'll never know.
All three of those people that you named, at least one of them we know was there and was a friend and a companion or whatever, associate of Puff Daddy. I could see Jerry Jones being there.
Oh yeah,
I definitely could see Donald Trump being there.
We got video of that.
Hey,
think about this. When we voted in this current this administration, the United States did. There was a promise given, if you recall, during the campaign that hey, we're going to expose everything about everything in the justice system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometime in like January, I think when the new AG was put in the installation, the AG said, "Yeah, we're gonna release files." FBI director comes in, "Yeah, we're gonna release files." Have you seen any Epstein files? Have you seen even they claim to have put the Kennedy files out there? They're useless. They don't tell me anything more.
Yeah, because everything that you want to know is redacted.
Exactly.
So, and again, let's not be ignorant or coy about this. Rich people hang with rich people.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
When you get to a certain status, sometimes just being rich is boring and you need something different.
Yep.
And I can see these people being part of that different crowd and they don't want to be exposed. They don't want Jeff Epstein wasn't, who do you think he was catering to? He wasn't catering to me.
Exactly.
But you don't hear who he's catering to because they don't want to be known. Because it might be a blockbuster kind of story that all of the people that we talk about who are in positions of power might have been these people who are also doing the wrong things. And that could include judges and everybody else.
Judges, politicians, Jay-Z, take the pick.
So they don't want their story told. So they're going to hide it and sweep it under the rug. If there's anything that America has done better than any country, it's hide the secrets or push the bad parts of our past somewhere where it can't be found, far in the closet, far under the rug, whatever you want to call it. That's what we do. We don't talk about our bad history and make it better. Austrians, they were, we were wrong for being part of that whole German Empire and what happened to the people and what they did to, Jews. They distance themselves and they teach that in school, in grammar school, so they don't repeat the bad histories.
And that's where I take it both ways. Like you said, we bury our stuff, or we have stuff sitting there prominently, Confederate statues and stuff, and then we take them down because, again, we're trying to erase history. I'm sorry, but you keep everything there for the visual public to learn.
Good and bad. Yes. You can teach from the bad too. Hey, you know what? This guy was a great general within the Confederate Army and did this. These guys did this. However, or they're part of the Union, but this is what they were protecting. And maybe that wasn't the right thing,
Yeah.
But we don't do that. We don't talk about slavery. We don't talk about the Civil War. We don't even give credit to people like the Black women who are the people who are doing all of the work during these wars that we had. We don't talk about the Black people who fought in these wars, whether it's the Tuskegee Airmen or you go back to the Civil War and how many people died for the idea of what the country represented. We don't talk about that.
Back when you did U.S. history, back when you did U.S. history back in high school, right? How much time did you actually spend, maybe other than maybe one day or one chapter, on the building of the railroad in this country? The
Zero.
Chinese immigrants, the Mexican immigrants.
Exactly.
Asian.
Blacks weren't the only slaves.
Exactly.
But we don't talk about any of that.
You know about Japanese internment camps in California.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much there that existed between 1850 and 1950 that we've erased.
We don't talk about that. We don't want the warts to be shown. And to me, it's like the beauty of something is to point out the great and the bad and show how you became great from understanding the bad. And we don't do that. We want to hide it all. We want to stop educating people. We don't want you to learn about history. We don't want you because it was bad. Let's just talk about today going forward, you know. And I'm sorry, but you got to know about your past to understand how you can make a brighter future. That's just the truth.
And I'll bring it back full circle. You know, we start off part of the message here with, you know, Angel Reese, WNBA, all that stuff, and everything else. At the end of the day, what we ask for is knowledge, communication, transparency. Let people figure out things, learn things, and get better from them, good and bad. That's the only thing you can ask for in sports, people, daily life, everything else you could possibly think of.
That's it. And I think we just need to get past the judgment phase too, because some of the things that we pose judgment on are because of our own tainted past and our own things. You should judge the book by its cover. Don't go by what other people say about things. That's why prejudice is still what it is, because parents teach their kids, and just learn for yourself. You might experience something totally different and give you a different perspective about the world around you and how you can make it better and how it makes you better.
Yep, absolutely. One of the things I always joke with a couple of kids and even my own kids is like, learn the game of chess, because in chess there's infinite moves. How you choose to understand the board makes you decide which way the best choice is. And the only way to do that is to see the whole board, not just close view. That's the thing.
That's it. I wish people would at least apply. We're all intelligent in one way or another. There are some people who choose to be ignorant or have been ignorant. There's some people that just choose to be stupid and do stupid things. But we inherently have intelligence in us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be that civilized human, you know, up the
we're here. There's primitive animals here.
We're at the top of the totem pole. Otherwise, you'd be down there on, you know, with the animals outside doing those things. But we choose to be bad, choose to be good, choose to listen, because nobody knows everything. I don't care if you're the smartest person in the world. You don't know everything. You might be enlightened by someone you might normally dismiss. Don't dismiss it. Embrace it. Listen, learn. And it might be able to help you be the better you. And maybe you could help that person be a better them.
There's book smarts and there's street smarts, and you need both to survive in the world.
Exactly. I agree with that. And on that note, we got a holiday coming up, Memorial Day. One of the things that I always respect is when I can see somebody do something that I myself might not be able to do and think it's right. You know, I remember when my mom, I used to eat chitlins, and one day, one of the holidays, she had to work at the hospital, so I had to make the chitlins. So I had to clean the chitlins, and I was in the process of cleaning chitlins. And anybody that knows what chitlins are, they're pig intestines. You clean it out, and inside the pig intestines is all of the nastiest stuff. You see pig eating off the ground, all that goes into their intestines. You got corn, hair, shit, all sorts of stuff, right? I did that for about half of the 10-pound tub that I had. I called her up at the hospital and I told my mom, I love you. And you know why I love you? Because you did something I cannot even do for myself. And she did it for many years because she loved me that much. Those people who are in transition, and what the point was, there are people who have sacrificed their lives, sacrificed their time with their family to protect the greater good of what America is supposed to stand for. I tip my cap to you because you did something I couldn't do for myself. And I want everyone, and I hope that everyone is showing that appreciation for all of our veterans, for the people who are out there, people who are doing the things to protect our independence and freedoms. Because we do a bad job of that, given these freedoms. We try to impose things on other people that make them not free.
Agreed.
So hats off. This is Memorial Day. Honor it, celebrate it, and show that you respect the concept of someone going out to protect your freedoms.
Yep, couldn't have said it better. It makes perfect sense, and honestly, that's what the holiday is meant to be: is an idea to remember and learn from. Absolutely, absolutely.
So tip my hat to all of you guys. Thank you for your service, and I mean that sincerely. And hope that others will provide the same kind of support, appreciation for the people who have served on our behalf.
Nope. On that note, we shall return with follow-up from the start of the NBA playoffs and everything else going on later this week, hopefully, and early next week. In the meantime, we bid you adieu, but we thank you for listening to our hopefully positive message for the day.
Be well, promote happiness, positivity, and peace in the environment you live in.
Yep.
All right. P squared.
All right.
Always appreciate you, partner, respect you, and thank you for
always
having such a rousing discussion about sports and about life and being able to put the two together to help the family that we've created with our viewers and with ourselves.
Absolutely. Appreciate it most. I'll catch you guys later.
All right. Peace out.
Nope.